Ben Dubose, news editor, AAMP Media. We're here at the AAMP 2025 Annual Conference in Exco with Scott Perry, Chief Technology Director of InduMar. Scott, thanks so much for taking the time. Why don't you start by telling us a little bit more about InduMar as a company? I know you all use materials to enhance performance, protect other materials and assets. How does it all work?
So InduMar's been around for 39 years. We're based out of Houston, and we've been supplying composite materials, and very specifically composite materials, to provide repair solutions to a wide range of industries. And the idea is that we're looking to help people repair needs in wastewater treatment, in terms of chemical refining, pipelines, upstream, midstream. Just a wide range of industries are calling for solutions that are not the traditional metal repair.
So what are some examples of how InduMar's products are ultimately used out in the industry?
So I can cite three examples, and we have a catalog of materials, but three examples I think will highlight the different categories of repairs that we're doing. So the first is our most long-standing product called Stop It. And that product is a fiberglass water-activated urethane wrap. And it is intended to be applied to a pipe or a fitting or a valve in which we have a leak that simply by wrapping the material onto the pipe will seal leaks. And there's a range of pressure requirements and a range of performance characteristics to that. In contrast to that, we have a larger format product that's again urethane and fiberglass, but that's being wrapped onto pipes that are going to be prepared for horizontal directional drilling. And that's where a pipe is pulled through a hole that's been drilled in the ground horizontally, as the name suggests. And that product is going to provide a physical protection of the pipe that's being pulled. And then finally, pipes that are either buried or above the surface that have experienced damage, we're going to be wrapping on an epoxy fiberglass composite wrap, and that is going to be to strengthen the pipe. And that is going to overcome damage associated with wall loss. So 3 categories of repairs, 3 separate composites for those needs.
So before we started recording, we were talking about InduMar as a company, and you described it as composite pipe repair at a very high level. So relative to traditional repair approaches that are out there in the industry, what's unique about the composite approach? How do the composite materials give performance benefit that goes beyond the traditional approach?
Right. So traditional approaches in many of the industries that I discussed involve the replacement of the component. But oftentimes that will lead to significant downtime, loss of income. And so the composite repair products offer an opportunity to come in and either provide a stopgap solution until a turnaround can be reached, or to provide a solution that is not as entailed as the replacement of an entire component. And so our approach is to provide materials that enable a reduced labor and reduce cost.
So you all at InduMar, I mentioned that you're a composite pipe company, but you've got a unique materials design process. How do you all leverage that materials design process to optimize the composites for specific end use?
So a couple of examples I think will illustrate the answer to that question. First, if we think about that leak sealing product that I talked about, our experience in the field over the 39 years that this product's been available is that many leaks are going to occur at fittings, tees, valves, the irregularities in a piping system. And so, for example, that has highlighted the need to use a very conformable fiberglass reinforcement in the composite to get into those nooks and crannies. And in fact, in our laboratory testing, we have found that the knit fiberglass will outperform a standard plain weave fiberglass. That's an example of material design where you're choosing the property of the material to accomplish a performance need. Now we go further than that, and we also design the resin. And so in that emergency leak sealing product, it has a very specific resin that will highly adhere to the pipe, but it has a chemistry such that it won't adhere to your hand. There's a bit of a trick involved in that. And of course, it has to be non-porous, so it seals leaks. We can go further, think about the abrasion-resistant product, and we took the resin and we toughened it. That's a chemical synthesis process. So we're doing design all the way down on the chemistry. And then the X-Core line of epoxy composites, we're actually moving to a reinforcement where we have optimized the tensile strength in the hoop direction to provide the greatest strength for the same amount of material and therefore strengthen the pipe as quickly as possible.
So we're at the AAMP 2025 show in Nashville, and there's a lot of people that come to shows like this just to learn, to get more information about potentially using products or services or technologies down the line. So as someone that develops composite products, what advice would you have for someone that's here that's just looking to explore using composites for their applications or their repair needs? Just general advice for people that are interested in learning more.
So we are coming across regularly people who have not used composites before. And it does take a number of steps to see that you arrive at a successful repair. First, I would say that it's important to fully characterize the repair need. Is it actively leaking? What is the contents of the pipe? What are the temperature and operating conditions? What's the size of the pipe? These are simply details that we're going to need to know in order to specify a given repair need. Secondly, I would say it's important that the repair objective is prioritized. Is it that I have to seal this leak right away, or am I looking at reinforcing the strength of the pipe? And there's a long litany of priorities that could be addressed, but it's important to put those in order to kind of guide the selection of the material. And then finally, I would say for new users, it's important that there is some training associated with the application of these materials. And I would point people to the website where we have installation videos, 2 to 3 minutes, simply highlighting what are the steps to go on. It's something that is not difficult, but it's important to see the steps illustrated in order to improve the chance for success for the application of these repair products.
And the website is InduMar.com, correct?
Exactly.
Good stuff. Folks, he is Scott Perry, Chief Technology Director at InduMar. I'm Ben Dubose, News Editor with AMP Media. We're wrapping things up at the AMP 2025 Annual Conference and Expo in Nashville. Thanks for watching.